Good afternoon, and thanks for joining us for a Tax Practitioners Board webinar. My name is Lun Lak, and I'm joining you from Gadigal country. I respectfully acknowledge the traditional owners and custodians of country throughout Australia and their continuing connection to land, waters, and community. I would like to pay my respect to them and their cultures and elders, past and present. To begin, I have a few quick housekeeping messages. First, to obtain a copy of today's slides, you can visit our webinar resources hub at tbb.gov.au/webinar hub. We will also email you a copy of the slides. Today's webinar counts towards your continuing professional education or CPE, and you can claim 1 hour for attending. In relation to claiming your CPE, we will issue an attendance certificate to those staying on for the duration of the session. What we'll cover today. So today we'll be looking at the new Code of Professional Conduct Obligations introduced under the determination. In particular, the requirements relating to upholding and promoting the ethical standards of the tax profession and keeping clients informed. We'll discuss the reasons for these new obligations, when they came into effect, and we'll share some case studies, followed by panel discussion, and then we'll answer your questions. Now we have Fiona, Vishnu, and Georgia from our policy and legislation team here to respond to your questions as we go, so please submit them using the Q&A. To find the Q&A, simply move your mouse over the screen and a range of icons will appear. We do have a lot of people online today, so we may not get to all of your questions. However, we have FAQs available on our website following the webinar. You can also use the chat function to speak with other participants, but if you want a response from us, make sure to use the Q&A. And to disable any of these functions, simply move your cursor over the relevant icon and unselect Show Preview. Also, a reminder to keep your comments courteous and professional. Now, I would like to introduce our speaker and panelists for today, Peter DeCure, TBB Chair, and Tariq Kumar, the TBB's Director of Policy and Legislation. Welcome, everyone. Peter, over to you to get things started.
Thanks, Lon, and good afternoon to everybody. We're here today to work on expanding everybody's understanding of the changes to the Code of Professional Conduct, specifically the new obligations to uphold and promote the ethical standards and to keep clients informed under the Tax Agent Services Code of Professional Conduct determination from 2024, specifically the Ministerial Code determination. I genuinely understand that there are still some concerns about the changes within the profession. I'm keen to reassure everybody that we've worked very closely with both government, the Treasury, and the various professional bodies, in particular through the Tax Practitioners Governance and Standards Forum, to make sure that we have taken all the relevant feedback from the profession and done our best to incorporate that feedback into our guidance products that we will be discussing in some more detail this afternoon. So we'll jump straight into it and we'll be talking about the new code requirements and particularly our guidance products. So just to outline the details of the 8 new obligations under the Ministerial Code determination, the obligations include upholding and promoting the ethical standards of the tax profession, requirements in relation to not making false or misleading statements and what needs to be done if such statements are made, management of conflicts of interest when undertaking work for government, maintaining confidentiality when undertaking work for government, keeping proper client records, ensuring that tax agent services that you provide or are provided on your behalf are provided competently, obligations in relation to the establishment of quality management systems within your own practices, and one of our special topics for this afternoon, obligations in relation to keeping your clients properly informed. It's pretty easy to see that these new obligations align very closely with the 5 existing key principles of the Code. They also leverage and work in neatly with the guidance material from existing accounting bodies, in particular the Professional Ethical and Standards Bodies, a board that has developed and released substantial guidance in relation to various elements of their own requirements, and these are very consistent with the requirements of the Code of Conduct. So we're pretty confident that the majority of you both already understand and are being compliant with these requirements. Given that the specific requirements of the code determination are new, I'd like to start by talking about the application dates. So really, when do these requirements come into effect? As you'd be aware, last year government decided to defer the application date for the determination. So now we're in a set of circumstances where for large tax practitioner firms, i.e. those firms with more than 100 employees, the obligations commenced on 1 January 2025. For smaller firms, i.e. those with 100 or less employees, the obligations commence from the 1st of July 2025. It's also important to note that this includes any new tax practitioners with 100 or less employees that registered between 1 August 2024 and 30 June 2025. The deferred application time or date allows time to implement and update systems and processes that are required to meet these new obligations. So let's move on and start talking about the new requirement to uphold and promote ethical standards within the profession. Under Section 10 of the determination, you must independently and in cooperation with other practitioners uphold and promote the code. You are obligated to not engage in any conduct that you know or reasonably to know may undermine public trust and confidence in the integrity of the tax profession, including conduct that discredits the profession or brings the tax profession into disrepute, or undermine the public trust and confidence in the integrity of the tax system. You must not engage in any conduct that you know or that you ought reasonably know would undermine the collective work of registered tax practitioners as a tax profession to uphold and promote the code. You must promote public trust and confidence in the integrity of the tax profession, and each member of the profession being held accountable for their own conduct. Section 10 encourages a tax profession with high ethical values that does not engage in misconduct, does not turn a blind eye to misconduct, and does not shy away from taking action against the misconduct of other registered practitioners. The purpose of this, again, is to maintain trust and confidence in the tax profession and our tax system at large. In practice, how you meet the obligation to uphold and promote the code of conduct will depend on your own circumstances and include the size and nature of your practice and the degree of authority and control of any specific individual within a firm. As with all of these new obligations, we understand that different operating models between large and small firms will mean that the obligations are implemented and managed differently depending on the personal circumstances of your own firms, whether they be large or whether they be small. We clearly do not expect smaller firms to necessarily implement the same sophistication of systems and processes that we do expect of larger firms. We do, however, expect you to have appropriate arrangements in place to make sure that you are operating in a professional and ethical manner. Section 10 of the code also applies to tax practitioners in any professional role connected with the tax profession and the tax system. I'd now like to work through each of the three key concepts in Section 10. Firstly, upholding and promoting the code. Generally, you can demonstrate compliance by ensuring that your own compliance with the code on an ongoing basis and by taking reasonable steps to implement practical measures to uphold and promote the code in your own practice. I'll discuss some of these practical measures in more detail later in our webinar. Moving on to the second concept in Section 10, which is not engaging in conduct that undermines the tax profession. This obligation recognises that public trust and confidence in the system is influenced by the actions of tax practitioners. Therefore, their misconduct reflects on the profession as a whole. You will fail to comply with this obligation if you either have actual knowledge or constructive knowledge that your conduct may undermine public trust and confidence in the integrity of the tax profession or the system. Constructive knowledge is where a person is taken to have knowledge about their conduct. If the existence of that conduct could be discovered by a reasonable person in the same position as the person making reasonable inquiries. The relevant factors in determining whether a registered tax practitioner ought reasonably know in any given scenario will always depend on circumstances and are considered on a case-by-case basis. Our guidance provides two specific examples where there will not be a breach of this obligation. Firstly, a registered tax practitioner providing feedback or submissions which are done professionally will not breach this obligation. So you're free to engage in open feedback with the ATO or with Treasury through various professional forums in relation to prospective policies or in relation to the tax law at large. We do obviously ask that you do it in a constructive and professional manner. Secondly, any tax practitioner who chooses to exercise their legal rights or the legal rights of their clients in relation to appeals and objections and those sort of things will not be in breach of this obligation. Lodging an objection or an appeal to an administrative tribunal or a court against the decision of the Commissioner is very much allowed and is not in breach of this requirement. We'll now discuss the third concept in section 10. You are obliged not to engage in conduct that undermines the collective work of the tax profession. This obligation recognises that the profession works collectively through professional bodies. Tax and BAS agent services are often provided collectively by multiple firms, including lawyers, specialist R&D consultants, specialist transfer pricing consultants, etc. So it's a matter of being able to uphold the profession and the ethics and integrity of the profession overall. A breach of this obligation can include conduct that erodes the reputation of a tax professional or diminishes their standing in the public eyes. Again, practitioners must have either actual or constructive knowledge of their conduct in order to fail to comply with this obligation. So let's have a quick look at a case study to demonstrate the obligations under this section. In case study 1, in this example, we have Sam, a tax agent, operating with the support of a junior accountant, Paul. Sam is contacted by his friend Adam to seek assistance with preparing and lodging income tax returns for himself, his wife Carol, and Adam advises Sam that they have some related entities to include in their returns and provides the information to Sam. Sam then delegates the work relating to Adam and Carol to his junior, Paul. Soon after, Adam advises Paul that he and Carol have separated and are now going through a divorce process. Paul identifies that there may be a conflict of interest for the firm to be providing services to both Adam and Carol and raises his concern with Sam via an email. Sam dismisses Paul's concerns on the basis that Adam is a close friend and he'd be fine with it. And anyway, the firm needs the professional fees. Sam instructs Paul to proceed with the work. Sam does not make any other record relating to the potential conflict and deletes the email from Paul, which evidences that it was raised with him as an issue. Let's show us a thumbs up if you think Sam has met his obligations, or a surprised emoji if you think he hasn't. Yeah, I think most of you are on the surprised bandwagon, and I've got to say that in this scenario, it's clear that Sam has failed to comply with Section 10 of the determination, and as a result, he has breached Code Items 5 and 17. Specifically, he's not got adequate arrangements in place for the management of conflicts of interest that have arisen in relation to his activities in his capacity as a registered tax agent. He has provided directions to staff not to engage in specific conduct where that conduct may relate to a breach of the code. He's not maintained appropriate records relating to the potential code breach, and he is not developing a culture of transparency, accountability, and ethical conduct in compliance with the code. So having regard to all of the circumstances, Sam's conduct clearly is a breach of his obligations under the code because he hasn't managed the conflict of interest and he hasn't done it in a professional or ethical manner. Accordingly, the TPB could find these breaches and may well impose a sanction on Sam for this poor behaviour. Before we jump to the next obligation, I'd like to hand over to Julie to conduct a quick poll for us.
Thanks, Peter. I thought it would be a good time just to test everyone's knowledge and see what their understanding is of the obligation. So the poll's just going to pop up on your screen in just a second, and we're asking you to consider the following scenarios. So we have Tom. He's a director of a registered BAS agent company, which employs 5 supervising registered BAS agents who are required to annually attest to their compliance with a range of workplace obligations, including CPE, to maintain their TPB registration. Now, Tom is aware 3 out of the 5 supervising registered BAS agents have not attested to their compliance with their CPE activities during the year. So Tom raises these concerns with the 3 supervising registered BAS agents. The BAS agents each explain they were not able to allocate time to complete their CPE activities during the year due to the substantial increases in their workloads. So Tom takes this into consideration and implements an action plan to address the issue by providing resources to the 3 supervising registered BAS agents on complying with their CPE requirements under the code. He also reallocates work of a more complex nature from the 3 supervising agents to the remaining 2 supervising registered agents who are up to date with their CPE requirements. He provides direction to the 3 supervising registered BAS agents to complete their CPE activities before the end of the year, and that's in accordance with the TPB's CPE requirements. He also asks the 3 supervising registered BAS agents to maintain appropriate records of the CPE activities they've completed and to inform him if they are not able to comply with their requirements before the end of the year. And then finally, he records a file note of the issue and the discussions that he's had, since it relates to potential breaches of the code by the 3 supervising registered BAS agents for failing to maintain knowledge and skills relevant to the BAS services that they're providing for the company. So the question that we've got for you now is, has the registered BAS agent complied with its obligations under Section 10 of the determination? So we have 3 options to choose from. They are yes, no, and unsure. So I'll give you a minute to digest that and to put through your responses. And then once we've done that, we'll come back and share those results and we'll chat through what the correct response is. And also the scenario is there on the slide as well for anyone to have a look through. Okay, we've got about 40% of people who've put through a response, so I will keep it open just a little bit longer. I know it was a longer question this time than usual, so I'll give you a little bit more time to put through your response there. Okay, I'm closing that one now, so I'll just end the poll. I'm just sharing those results up on the screen. Hopefully everyone can see those. So Peter, we've got 69% of people who have participated saying that yes, they do believe that the obligations have been complied with. 21 have said no, and 10% of people are not quite sure what the correct response is. So thank you everyone, and I'll hand it back to you, Peter, and you can give us the correct answer.
Thanks, Julie, and I'll jump on board with the 69%. In this case, Tom, who is a director of the company, has clearly made sure that the company meets its obligations under the code. So Tom has taken action, firstly, to hold his supervisory BAS agents accountable. There's been a process where their CPE compliance has been checked, and when it's found not to be checked, he's actively undertaken a management performance process to ensure that they get their CPE requirements up to standard. He's provided resources and made the appropriate arrangements for all of those agents to be able to get their CPE up and under control and reallocated workloads to provide the space to do that. So we're comfortable that the company was in fully compliant with its obligations and is not engaged in any conduct that would undermine the public trust or confidence or integrity in the tax profession. Instead, it has created and maintained a culture of transparency, accountability, and ethical conduct and compliance with the code. So let's move on now and start talking about the obligations under Section 45 to keep clients informed. So I'll take you through this now. Before I go straight into these requirements, we know that there's been a lot of questions and concerns in this in relation to these matters. I'm hoping that our guidance information published on our website has ironed out most of these, but I really would like to stress that most of what needs to be done here is simply good practice management. As I said, we'll work through this to make it to help it make it clearer for you. But at the very outset, I want to stress a couple of points. One is that these obligations to keep clients informed definitely do not extend to your own physical or mental health issues. It also does not require you to inform your clients of any investigation that is being undertaken by the TPB in relation to your practice. There may be some obligations if an investigation has been concluded, but not until after it has been concluded. So let's look at the specific requirements. You are required to advise all of your clients and prospective clients of the following information. Firstly, that the TPB maintains a public register of tax and BAS agents on the TPB website, how clients can search the register, and we recommend you also provide your clients and prospective clients with a direct link to your registration details on the register. You must advise clients about how they can make a complaint about a tax agent or BAS service that you have provided. And at a minimum, you should advise your client that a complaint can be made to the TPB through its website and provide a link to our complaints form and advise clients that further information about our complaints process is available on our website. You must provide general information about your rights and responsibilities and obligations as a registered tax practitioner, including to your client under the taxation laws, the TASA and the code, and what obligations your clients have to you as their registered tax practitioner. You must also provide information about certain prescribed events which have occurred within the last 5 years. I'll discuss these prescribed events in more detail in a moment. You must let clients know of any prescribed matters that currently apply to you. This includes if your registration is subject to a condition that limits the scope of tax agent or BAS services that you can provide. There may be other matters that you will need to advise clients under other laws, for example, where you have failed to comply with the code and have been ordered by the TPB to take specific actions. This may include an order requiring you to advise clients of one or more matters, such as findings of an investigation. Section 45 of the determination is intended to increase the transparency of the tax profession, which is critical to ensuring integrity of the system as a whole. Further, this obligation helps to ensure clients are provided with relevant information so that they can make fully informed decisions about whether to engage or to continue to engage you to use your services and to represent them in their own tax affairs. Let's move on now and talk about the prescribed events. As I've just alluded to, it's important to note that you are only required to keep your current and prospective clients informed of prescribed events that have occurred within the last 5 years. Prescribed events include if your registration was suspended or terminated by the TPB, if you are an undischarged bankrupt or went into external administration, if you were convicted of a serious taxation offence, if you were convicted of an offence involving fraud or dishonesty, you were serving or sentenced to serve a term of imprisonment in Australia for 6 months or more, you were penalised, subject to an injunction or have been subject to an order for breaching a voluntary undertaking or for being a promoter of a tax exploitation scheme. You are penalised, subject to an injunction, or been subject to an order for breaching a voluntary undertaking for implementing a scheme that has been promoted on the basis of conformity with a public ruling, private ruling, or oral ruling in a way that is materially different from that described in the ruling. You are penalised, subject to an injunction, or have been subject to an order for breaching a voluntary undertaking for promoting, on the basis of conformity with a public ruling, private ruling, or oral ruling, a scheme that is materially different from that described in that ruling. Or the federal court has ordered you to pay a pecuniary penalty for contravening a civil penalty provision under the TASA. For these prescribed events, the notification obligation to your clients only applies to events that have arisen on or after the 1st of July 2022. Therefore, the 5-year look-back period is calculated by working backwards from the time you received an inquiry from a client to engage or re-engage you, but it does not apply to events which occurred before the 1st of July 2022. Most of these prescribed events are consistent with events that may affect your continued registration, which must be notified to the TPB for consideration as part of the ongoing registration requirements to be a fit and proper person. Even where you have complied with this requirement by notifying the TPB an event and then found by the TPB to continue to be fit and proper, the obligation to notify under the determination still requires you to take this step to notify clients and prospective clients as we have outlined. Where relevant, you should also consider making plans or arrangements where you are unable to run your own practice in the short or long term to avoid any impact on your clients and your practice. Importantly, disclosure to prospective and current clients should go beyond events relating directly to you, extending to matters that relate to any company or partnership that you are associated with and that are involved in the provision of tax agent services. I'd like to talk now about what constitutes a reasonable amount of detail. We expect you to provide a reasonable amount of detail about the prescribed events so that clients are fully informed of matters that may impact their decision to engage or continue to engage you to provide tax, agent, or BAS services. The information that may be disclosed to clients can include things like the date the prescribed events occurred, a description of the prescribed event, if the prescribed event is ongoing or has been finalised, a website link to your registration record on the TPB register, and how you intend to provide another or further updates about the prescribed events as and when applicable. We can now move on to how you can keep your clients properly informed. Section 45 sets out the manner and form and timeframe requirements for keeping your clients informed. It provides that you must keep all client and prospective clients informed in writing in a prominent, clear, and unambiguous way. This requirement is intended to provide flexibility, allowing you to choose your preferred way to advise clients. One way you can inform all current and prospective clients of relevant information is by completing the following 3 steps. Firstly, publishing the information on your publicly accessible website that you use to promote your tax or BAS agent services. 2, including the information in letters of engagement or re-engagement, as the case may be, that are given to your clients. And 3, providing your clients upon engagement or re-engagement with a copy of the TPB's fact sheet on general information for clients. This example is not the only way you can satisfy this obligation. For example, if you don't have a publicly accessible website to promote yourself, you may satisfy this requirement simply by undertaking steps 2 and 3 above. If you're looking to provide the TPB's fact sheets to clients, you should be aware that you will need to be supplemented with additional relevant information pertaining to the terms of engagement with the client, which will obviously vary depending on your circumstances. The TPB's fact sheet is available to be downloaded from our website, and a link to this will be shared in the chat in the course of this webinar. Now, let's move on and now discuss the required timeframes to advise clients. For matters that relate to the TPB register, complaints process, and general information about rights, obligations, and responsibilities, you must advise clients at the time they re-engage or engage you, or upon receiving a client's request for further information. For prescribed events, as I mentioned earlier when discussing these types of events, this obligation only applies to events that occurred on or after 1 July 2022. If the prescribed event arose between 1 July 2022 and the relevant application date of the obligation, you must advise your clients of any prescribed event by no later than 31 July 2025 if you're a small firm and your obligation starts on 1 July 25, or no later than 31 January 2025 if you're in a large firm and the obligation started on 1 January 2025. So for those of you in large firms, you should have already done this. If the prescribed event arose on or after the relevant application date, you must notify a current or prospective client at the time they make inquiries to engage or re-engage you, and you must notify an existing client who has not been advised previously of the event within 30 days of the event happening. In relation to prescribed matters, you must notify a current or prospective client at the time they make inquiries to engage or re-engage you, and an existing client who has not previously been advised of the matter within 30 days of the event. Generally, we expect you to take all reasonable steps to advise your clients of relevant matters as soon as practical. I'll now share a case study with you to demonstrate these obligations, and then we can move on to some panel questions. In this case study, let's consider a tax agent company that failed to advise prospective clients of relevant matters relating to the TPB. CTX Proprietary Limited is a registered company agent with 200 employees, i.e. it's a large firm, so these obligations apply from 1 January this year. CTX is engaged by a prospective client and provides a letter of engagement to the client which sets out a description of the work to be performed. However, the company omits information about the TPB maintaining a register of tax agents and BAS agents, and omits information about how the client can access and search the register. It also omits information about how the client can make a complaint about the tax agent services the company provides, including any information about the TPB's complaints process. Additionally, CTX did not take any steps to include this information on its publicly available website. By not including this information, CTX has clearly failed to comply with Section 45(1) of the determination, and as a result, the company has breached subsection 30.10.17 of the TASA by failing to keep its clients informed of matters relevant to the TPB at the time of engagement. Thanks, everybody. I'd now like to hand back to Julie, and we'll conduct our panel conversation and answer some questions.
Thanks for that, Peter. I'll invite Tariq to join us as well for the panel conversation. And just to give you a bit of a breather, I'll put the first question to you, Tariq. And this one's just clarifying some information that Peter spoke about in the webinar. So when he was talking about upholding and promoting the code, he mentioned implementing practical measures into your practice. Could you please give us some examples of what that would mean in a practical sense? Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Julie. Good question. There's a number of factors that we do list in our information product. I'll talk about a couple now, but if you want an extensive list, please visit our website where we provide quite a few factors. But some things that you could do are providing training and resources to members of your firm on complying with the code, introducing and actively undertaking processes to manage underperformance in relation to breaches of the code, instituting mechanisms for staff to report and address concerns that may have in relation to breaches of the code, and developing a culture of transparency and accountability of ethical conduct. Now, obviously, not all of these factors will be relevant for everyone. For example, if you're a sole practitioner and you don't have any staff, the factors that we list in relation to those relating to staff won't apply to you. So it will ultimately depend on the size of your firm and your setup, but have a look at our website and our guidance products where we do list some of those factors.
Perfect. Thank you for that, Tariq. Peter, at the start of the webinar, you discussed the start date of the new obligations for small tax practitioners and others. In situations where a tax practitioner moves from a large firm to a smaller firm, does the relevant application date change for them?
Yeah, Julie, definitely the application dates relate to the size of the firm that you're working in at the time. So if you do happen to move from a small firm to a larger firm, if you're in a larger firm today, the obligations already apply to that firm. But if tomorrow you were at a small firm, they would start in relation to that firm on the 1st of July.
Great, thanks for clarifying that. Tariq, I've got a question here from Craig, and Craig's asking, if I don't have a website and do not do letters of engagement, will I just provide clients with a copy of the TPB fact sheet, or is there more that Craig would need to do?
Yeah, thanks, Julie. There is, in that circumstances, more. The fact sheet by itself won't be enough. If you don't have a website and you don't use letters of engagement, you will have to notify your clients in some other form, whether it's via a letter, via an email, some other communication. Ordinarily, if you don't have a letter of engagement, you might have some other tool which lists your obligations and your client's obligations, sets out the terms of the engagement you have with your client. You might be able to pop it into that document.
Thanks for that, Tariq. Peter, when it comes to engaging in conduct that does undermine the tax profession or the tax system, what would the TPB consider is a breach of the code?
Well, Julie, I think anything that deliberately tries not to comply with the tax law, but things like asking your clients not to tell you about some of the relevant facts, or giving clients the opportunity, say, to falsify records, maybe fudge a logbook or expenses claims, anything to do with destroying or not choosing not to keep evidence of a potential breach of the code. Any sort of action to promote or utilise tax avoidance schemes, or promote tax avoidance schemes, or any sort of promoter penalty things. Even rewarding people within your own practice for unethical behaviour, or not taking action to discourage unethical behaviour. There might be findings in relation to misuse of legal professional privilege, and even one of our very recent cases was where an agent had their registration terminated for abuse and fraudulent activity in the NDIS space. So they tried to hide that behaviour from us, which demonstrates they were convicted of fraud within that, of defrauding the NDIS, and that clearly meant that they weren't a fit and proper person to be a tax agent.
Thanks, Peter. I guess along a similar sort of vein is I've got a question here from an anonymous person just asking if they did have legitimate complaints against the ATO or the TPB, how can this be dealt with without causing any sort of undermining of the public confidence in the tax system?
Yeah, look, I think we've tried to really stress that you're perfectly entitled to pursue legitimate complaints and legitimate issues of disadvantage or of disagreement in the tax system. It's got to be done professionally. It's got to be done constructively. But I would remind people that we have got the Inspector General of Taxation and Tax Ombudsman available to everybody in the tax field, be they clients, taxpayers, or tax professionals. So the IGTO's office, there's a website for the Ombudsman. They can make any complaints about the TPB or the ATO direct to the Independent Ombudsman, and they will pursue those and look into them properly for you in a completely independent fashion.
Thanks, Peter. That's really good to know. Tariq, I've got a question here now for you, and this one's asking if a tax practitioner needs to let clients know if a complaint has been lodged with the TPB, even if there was no investigation or no sanction imposed on them.
Yeah, thanks, Julie. The short answer is no, you don't have to let your clients know if a complaint's been lodged. the obligation does not extend to requiring to tell your clients if a complaint has been lodged or even if there's an investigation on foot. It's limited to the very specific matters that Peter spoke about earlier. They're the outcomes of investigations like a suspension or a termination or those other matters. So again, it does not extend to if a complaint's been lodged or if there's an investigation on foot.
Thanks so much, Tariq. Just a couple of quick clarifying questions while I've got you, Tariq. First one is, what is a current client? And then secondly, what is a prospective client? So could you just explain both of those terms for everyone?
Yeah, sure. So a current client is, as the name suggests, basically anyone that you've received or you're currently receiving a tax agent service from in relation to a registered tax practitioner, and that person remains engaged with the practitioner. So someone where you've got an active engagement with. A prospective client, on the other hand, includes anyone that has directly contacted you about seeking an engagement for the provision of tax agent or BAS services, but you're yet to engage that person. So that could, for example, include someone that's contacted you by email or by phone or via your website. A prospective client could also include a former client where that relationship ceased, but they're seeking to engage you again. Relevantly, prospective clients do not include individuals or entities making general inquiries of you. So, sometimes you might have a client or an individual or an entity call up and just ask about your pricing structure for providing services. That in itself would not go so far as a prospective client, wouldn't be caught.
Thanks, Tariq. Peter, I've got a question for you, and this one's asking, should tax agents, and I guess BAS agents as well, be careful of what they do in their personal life, such as being a speaker, actively on political events, or presenting in public forums and things like that?
Julie, I think registered tax professionals are fully entitled to take part in political and social debates. The things that we need to see is that their participation is done in a professional and constructive and civilised fashion. Where we draw the line would be things that are, bad language or abusive to other people or inciting poor behaviour amongst others. But participation in the normal political processes and the normal policy development processes, you're perfectly entitled to do that. These provisions are in no way a restriction on anybody's civil liberties. We're just asking that people conduct themselves professionally, ethically, and with some civility.
Thanks, Peter.
Yeah, I'll probably just add to that, Julie.
Yeah, sure.
As Peter said, it doesn't impede that sort of speech. You can have robust debate on certain topics, including tax topics. But like Peter said, as long as it's done professionally, courteously, then there's no issue with that.
Thanks, Tariq. And I think that answers the question we've got in the chat there. Someone's just commenting about the fact that, if they have issue with these new provisions and they speak out about it, would that be, in breach of upholding the code? But as you said, if they do it in the right way, that's quite okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
No
Excellent.
problem.
Next question I've got is about the information that you need to provide about the TPB register. So, Tariq, would you just be able to give us a little bit more information on what exactly people need to be telling their clients about the public register?
Yeah, sure. So in respect of the register, you simply are required to advise clients that the TP maintains a register and that tax and BAS agents, a register about tax and BAS agents and how they can access it. So we've got, as we've alluded to in this presentation earlier, a fact sheet that we've developed. You can download that fact sheet that contains all the information you need for the purposes of satisfying that obligation. So feel free to use that document to provide to your clients.
Great, thanks. Just another quick question, Tariq. What do we mean by re-engagement? Just someone's asking us to clarify that, please.
Yeah, sure. So a re-engagement might be where, engaged a client has engaged you in the past, and there might not be any active work being done for that client for the time being. And, later down the track, they might seek to re-engage you. As I spoke about earlier, it could also mean a former client. So you might have had a client at a particular point in time, they move to another tax practitioner, and then they seek to re-engage you later down the track. So there's some examples of what that might include.
Thanks, Tariq. And Peter, would you be able to just give us a bit more information on what kind of information tax practitioners need to give us when they're making a complaint to the TPB?
Yeah, I think what we want is sufficient information to understand their complaint and to pursue their complaint. So, details of what it is that's being alleged as the bad behaviour, who they're reporting, so that there's enough for us to actually investigate, or at least an early triage of the problem, so that we've got enough information there to do it. Now, I do understand that sometimes people want to be able to do things anonymously. In that sense, we do everything we can to preserve people's anonymity, but we do need enough information to pursue the relevant issues. If you're giving if somebody's making a complaint about a practitioner, it's pretty hard to pursue it if we don't know who the practitioner is or what it is that they're complaining about.
Probably just add to that too, Julie. Peter's answered it there in terms of lodging complaints about a tax practitioner in relation to the obligation under the determination around what you have to advise your clients. It's simply you have to let them know how they can make a complaint about a tax agent service they receive and the TPB's complaints process. So that's the information that practitioners should be giving to their client. Again, that information is in our fact sheet together with the register information. So both of those elements can be ticked off by providing a copy of that fact sheet to your clients.
Thank you both. Again, we'll share that link to the fact sheet after the webinar today. So if you haven't caught it in the chat today, we will send it to you afterwards as well. Peter, we spoke about providing information in a prominent, clear and unambiguous way. Could you just give us a little bit of information on what we mean by that exactly?
Well, I guess firstly, making the information easily accessible to your client. So doing it in generally taken to mean that the information should be explained in plain English in a way that's easy to understand for the clients, that can be easily accessible by the client. So it should be, if it's in an engagement letter, it should be highlighted. If it's on your publicly available website, it shouldn't be hidden in the 54th tab. It should be, up front so that people can actually get access to it without looking for it too hard. I think, if you know that you're dealing in a community where English is a second language, well, perhaps you should think about communicating in a way that's easily accessible to your client base. But if it's done in plain English, that will be enough to satisfy us. But I think, the object of the exercise here is make the information easily accessible and understandable by the people it's intended to help.
Thanks, that makes sense. Tariq, if a tax practitioner publishes information about a prescribed event on their website, how long do they need to display that so that their clients have access to it?
Yeah, thanks, Julie. There's no set or defined period for those events. It should basically remain on the register for the period that it could reasonably influence a client in their decision making to engage you. So it's a bit of a situation where you have to exercise some professional judgment there. As a guide, you could align it to the period that we publish the information on our public register. So if the same piece of information is published on our public register, you may want to align it with the period it remains on our register.
Thanks for that. Peter, I've had a few people asking about conflicts of interest, and a couple have sort of spoken about when they've got clients who are going through a divorce or something like similar. Is that a conflict of interest? And would you just be able to sort of talk us through some of the things that people need to consider here?
Yeah, look, Julie, it's clear to me that acting for two clients who are both parties to a divorce, there is a potential for conflict of interest because the interests of the two clients are different. So if you're one practitioner acting for both, you're trying to participate in a set of circumstances where two people with very different interests are using the same practitioner. So what we expect you to do is have in place in your practice the right sort of processes and procedures to manage that conflict. In the first instance, the conflict would have to be disclosed to both clients. In the second instance, I think you would at least need separate practitioners to deal with either side of it. Probably, in a larger firm, that might be enough. In a very small firm, you probably need to get one of the parties to the divorce to go to a different accountant. Now, we've seen live a number of these situations, and I can tell you that poor decisions have been made on the basis of who's paying the fees. So it's clear that if one party is the controlling mind of the family's business affairs and another party is used to just going along and signing on the bottom line, that party can easily be taken advantage of. So I think practitioners need to be acutely aware of those sort of potential conflicts and take appropriate action both to disclose and adequately manage the conflict that can arise.
Thanks for that, Peter. Tariq, I've had some people asking why they can't just direct clients to the TPB website to meet the requirements. Is there something you'd like to comment in relation to that?
Yeah, sure, Julie. So the requirement is actually for you to notify your clients in relation to these certain particulars, including the register, the complaints, and certain events that have happened. Now, not all of that information will be on the register on our website in a clear, prominent way in one document. So that's why it is recommended that we do actually require that you provide that information via the fact sheet, via your engagement letters, or on your own website, etc. It won't be sufficient just to say refer to the TPB's website.
Thank you.
I think if I can add, Julie, I mean, our principal job is as the regulator, not as the professional association. That said, I think we're doing a lot to help practitioners. We're running these webinars. We've published clear guidance. We've published a fact sheet that really goes a long way in assisting you with meeting your obligations and is a guide to what you need to disclose. So I think we've done a lot, but what we're looking for is to create circumstances where we have a clearly ethical and professional set of operations for agents, tax agents and BAS agents. And I think it's critical that they step up to the plate and meet these disclosure obligations.
Thanks, Peter. Jan's just asking whether we're going to be providing the slides and recording. Yes, we absolutely will. We'll send out the slides after today. You can also access them on our webinar hub right now. In terms of the recording, we will have that available tomorrow on our YouTube channel. And just so you know, if you do subscribe to our YouTube channel, you'll get a notification when we put up new content. So that's always a good way to keep updated on what's been happening. Okay, so next question I've got is from Mark, and Mark's just asking, can we confirm, is it okay to simply deny an engagement and not have to report it? Tariq, do you want to go with that one?
Not a lot of information there, but
No, it's not very clear.
Can I say, Julie, sorry, that the obligation in relation to prospective clients applies from the first time they contact you. So I think, simply put, your obligations start at that first contact. So you must tell them that the TPB is here and how you can make a complaint and about the register. And at that point in time, you're welcome to decline the engagement. But I don't think you can meet your obligations without saying, here's the TPB, here's their register, here's how you make a complaint. and at this time we're not able to accept your engagement.
Thanks. Did you want to add anything else there, Tariq? Or
No, I think Peter's
no?
covered that
Yep.
one. Yep.
Perfect. Great. Okay, the next one here is for you, Tariq. Am I required to inform my clients about information relating to my associated companies or a partnership?
Yes, the short answer to that one is yes, Julie. The obligation does extend to your related entities that are involved in the provision of tax agent services. So it will extend to partnerships or companies if you're a sole practitioner, if those other entities are also involved in the provision of services.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, so I think we're sort of running out of time a little bit here. There's lots of questions in here about the fact sheet, but we will share that. So what I might do is give you both an opportunity just to give your final thoughts, and then we'll give some information to everyone as well about how to stay in touch. So yeah, Peter, did you want to give us a little wrap up and let us know any final thoughts for you today?
Thanks, Julie, and thanks everybody for your attention today. I really would just like to reiterate the amount of material that's available on our website, the fact that we understand that people will have take some time to implement these things, so we won't be banging on your door in the next 5 minutes, but we do encourage you to get on with it. And I think also just remember that we're trying to help you create an ethical, accountable, and transparent profession that helps you to run a good tax practice, protects you from unscrupulous and unregistered practitioners, and from those who are not prepared to do the right thing automatically. So I think these changes, for a small amount of effort, can provide quite a significant benefit to everybody.
Thank you so much, Peter. And Tariq, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Julie. So we've spoken about a couple of the obligations that have kicked in, or about to kick in with the code determination. There are a few other ones as well that Peter spoke about earlier, with a thing about 8 in total. There is, like Peter said, a lot of information on our website. We've got FAQs, we've got these webinar recordings, we've got information sheets. We'll also be putting out smaller bite-sized products as well in the coming months, so look out for those. There are a lot of information there and fact sheets that you can download to assist you to meet your requirements as well. So have a look on our website, lots of material there.
Thanks, Tariq. I just wanted to say thank you to everyone today for putting through your questions. We've had a really a massive amount of questions coming through, so obviously we haven't been able to answer all of them today, but just stay tuned. We will have some more information, as Tariq said, up on our website, and we do have a look through all of the questions that are being sent through during the session, and we do endeavour to answer those as well, and they'll be up on our website for you shortly. So yeah, have a look there. And then finally, just some more information on how to stay in touch. So the website is tpb.gov.au. You can also follow us on LinkedIn and Facebook, and that's where you'll get our most up-to-date information. And we've also got our YouTube channel, which is what I mentioned earlier. And that's where we store all of our webinar recordings. You can watch those at your leisure. You can still claim your continuing professional education for viewing those as well. And if you do subscribe to the channel, you do get a notification each time we update the videos and put up something new. So that's a good way to keep up to date as well. And then we also have our TPB e-news, which we go out with each month. And again, I highly encourage everyone to subscribe to that as well. And you can do that on our website at tpb.gov.au/newsroom. So a big thank you to Peter and to Tariq for sharing all of that really great information today. And thank you to Fiona, Vishnu and Georgia for assisting us with the questions as well. Just a reminder that we will send out a attendance certificate to everyone who stayed online today, and this session does count towards your CPE, and you can claim 1 hour for attending today. And now finally, just before we do finish up, I'll be launching an exit survey. So that will just pop up in your browser when you leave the session today. And we do really appreciate your feedback on the survey. It's very quick, only takes a moment, but it also gives us a lot of really valuable feedback on how we can improve our sessions. And we're always interested to hear if there's topics that you're interested in hearing about from us. So please let us know if there's anything you need to know, and we'll look at those as well. So once again, thanks everyone for joining us today. We do hope that you have a great afternoon, and we'll be talking to you again soon. Thanks everyone.